Hello everyone, welcome to another Stata tutorial video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the collapse command in Stata. The collapse command gives us a very convenient tool that we can use to reorganize our data. The collapse command fulfills the same role as pivot tables in Excel. The dataset that I have loaded up today is our ACS 2014 dataset. We have data from the American Community Survey from 2014 in two states, Illinois and Indiana. We have the sex, age, marital status, race, education, employment status, and wage for each observation. You can see here that I have 4,860 observations. How the collapse command works is I type collapse. Next, I type in the operator that I want to use. One of the most common ones that we'll use is mean. In parentheses, you'll type mean. Next, you type the variables that you want to collapse. Let's do wage. If I were to just run this command now and go back into the data browser, what we'll see is that we now have one observation, meaning that when I ran the collapse, Stata calculated the mean for every person in the data set, and that's all I ended up with. Now, this isn't particularly useful, so we're going to have to use an option. The option that we need to use is by. I'm going to reload the data set and try this again. Now I'll type collapse mean wage. But now I'm going to add the option by, and then in parentheses, I'm going to put the categories that I want to calculate the means by. You can put in as many variables as you want here. Let's start out with just state and sex. What this will give us is the mean wage for all combinations of those variables. So we'll get Indiana men, Indiana women, Illinois men, and Illinois women. When I run this, and go into the data browser, I can see that I now have 4 observations just like we expected. These 4 data points correspond with the 4 combinations of state and sex you can have. It's important to note that collapsing irreparably alters your data set, and we no longer have all of those observations we did before. For this reason, if you're going to save, I recommend that you save as and do not overwrite your original data set. I'm going to go ahead and save this as collapsed ACS. Let's load up the original one again and try another collapse. Mean is not the only operator that you can use. We can use other operators like sum, min, max, count. And the great thing about this is that you can choose the operator for a bunch of different variables. So for example, we could do sum of wage and mean of age. Now I'm going to add the option by, and I'll continue using state and sex. If I go into the data browser now, I can see that I still have those 4 categories, but now I have the mean age for each of those, and then the sum of the wage. Now, this isn't necessarily particularly useful measure, but it's an example of something that you can do with this. I've reloaded the original data set so we can try something else. Another thing that you can do is calculate multiple operations for the same variable. So if I change age to wage here and try to run this, unfortunately, when I run this, I get an error. And the problem with that is that when we run the collapse, we're going to end up with 2 variables with the same name. And that doesn't work. The way that we fix this is to assign a new name to these variables so that they're not both the same. To do this, I'll need to add a new name. I'll put sum wage equals in front of this wage, and then for the other one, I'll put mean wage equals wage. When I run this and go into the data browser again, you can see that I now have sum wage and mean wage calculating each of those things. One more useful one I want to show you is count. Let's load up the original data set again. And I'm going to run the same collapse that we just did, but I'm going to add one more. count. Now, it doesn't actually matter which variable I put in count because all we're doing is counting the number of observations. So I'm just going to put count equals wage here. Let's go into the data browser and see what happened. You can see that now I have a count of the number of individuals in each category. So there are 1,688 Illinois men, 1,548 Illinois women, and so forth. You can see that the Illinois categories have roughly double the amount that the Indiana ones do, and that's in line with our expectations for the relative populations of those two states. The last thing that I'll point out here is that, as always, the Stata documentation for collapse is quite helpful. All you need to do is type help collapse, and you'll bring up a document that gives you an idea of all the different options you have in using collapses. That's all I have to say for now on collapses. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for watching.